Hello and welcome to the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel. I'm your host, Elise, the Untitled Anarchist Seagull. And so, we continue to have just an utterly dire moment in history we're going through on so many levels. And I wanted to just make one recommendation for anyone who's looking to just kind of keep up in fairly detailed but digested fashion about exactly what's going on with Gaza. You really should check out the Electronic Intifada's live streams. Yeah, I've been watching them. I haven't been watching them live, but I've been getting them in my recommendations, and I've been watching them fairly regularly, and it's quite good. I mean, they cover a lot of ground in about hour and a half bites, including looking at the footage that we have of what the resistance has been doing during the ground war, and just basically how the Israelis are kind of getting wrecked on the ground. Couldn't have happened to nicer people. And also the degree to which the claims from the regime about what went down on October 7th, about Palestinians killing huge numbers of people in cold blood and all that, are just gradually falling apart, and now even Haaretz is calling for an investigation because it's becoming increasingly clear that the Israeli forces actually killed a lot of their own people, and then the government just decided to blame it on Palestinians in order to justify genocide. But, I mean, they cover all of this stuff, and they do a really good job of it. Definitely worth checking out. Now, I think we're going to resume looking at Caleb Muppet and his interactions with right libertarians, but I was reminded of another jabroni that I'd like to just bring in to the con. Thought Slime looked at one of his comedy videos, like a few months back, and so I decided to have a look. And so, the left versus the right on Christmas. Now remember, this is right wing comedy. Okay, I say this because much like with Caleb Maupin, there's some people you do have to announce in advance that they're having a joke. This is J.P. Sears. Incidentally, thanks to Black Anarchic Reacts, I now have an ad blocker that works, so we're not going to have to deal with that bullshit anyway. It's Adblock Plus. Adblock Plus is working just fine. Okay, we're gonna get this dickhead in 4K apparently.
Hey dude, Merry Christmas.
How dare you?
Oh, that's my favorite Greta Thunberg quote.
It's not.
Like, okay, so the idea here is, see, this is the season when the people who spend the rest of the year complaining about the fact that it's not socially acceptable for them to say the N-word claim that they're being banned from saying Merry Christmas. So the idea is apparently, supposedly, the left freaks out just in general over the words Merry Christmas.
Not Merry Christmas, it's Happy Holidays.
Why is that?
Because not everyone celebrates Christmas, and you saying Merry Christmas is uninclusive to them.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is true there are lots of other holidays being celebrated at the exact same time, but nobody freaks out over. I mean, the idea is that it's like us freaking out over this. Like, I will say, being Jewish, I've actually been quite happy that Happy Holidays is used. I will say that. I don't feel extremely strongly about it, but I don't feel as strongly as these motherfuckers do about the idea that other people are not, are using a more inclusive variant.
them and is you just projecting your white colonialism onto them.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's basically it.
White colonialism, eh? Well, I think Christmas originated in the Middle East by way of non-white people.
Yeah, which is why you motherfuckers are constantly making Jesus blonde and with blue eyes, right? Because you want to acknowledge that it originated with people of color who you wouldn't allow into the country now.
Doesn't matter. But
of course these are archetypes here, because I mean, if there's one group of people who are very quick to point out that Christmas originated with people of color, that Saint Nicholas was a black dude, that Jesus actually looked like somebody who would get randomly screened 5 times at the airport, it's the right wing. Right wingers love to point that out, obviously. I mean, as he points out, like in reality, not in a parallel universe that Jabroni P. Sears made up.
saying happy holidays is inclusive to everyone, no matter what traditions they celebrate.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Happy holidays, huh? Well, what if someone isn't happy and you say happy holidays to them?
Well, that's actually not a bad point. I mean, as it happens, a lot of people who are like depressed during this period, I mean, it would be, as it is notoriously an extremely stressful period for a lot of people, do find the sort of compulsory merrymaking that is constantly going around with all the fucking music on any retail establishment you go to, wherever. Yeah, I mean, not wrong, but of course we're supposed to pretend this is unreasonable. This is supposed to be unreasonable. And why? Okay, the guy who represents the left is dressed like Tim Pool, because none of this we have to just, like, it's like every aesthetic choice he makes absolutely no fucking sense.
Doesn't that express the same levels of uninclusiveness as what you're trying to avoid by being defiant to my phrase of Merry Christmas?
Well, and you don't get to raise that fucking argument, do you? Because that applies just as strongly to Merry Christmas, if not more. Like, literally, if you're going to make this argument, because we're going to pretend in this that it's not right-wingers losing their shit over this, that right-wingers are having a totally normal time, and everybody else is freaking out over the words Merry Christmas, because of the war on Christmas that doesn't exist. But let's just indulge this for a second. That argument actually ends up still making it Merry Christmas less inclusive, because then not only is it religiously exclusive, it's also still compulsory merrymaking amongst sometimes people who are actually not feeling in a very celebratory mood. Like, I imagine a lot of people are this year, including the literal fucking Christians of Bethlehem, who are giving it a miss this year. They're just gonna have services because their people are getting fucking genocided and they don't really feel like merrymaking. Yes, it is the season. Hello, River Rune.
Now we're at the point where I'm about to get angry because you're using logic to dismantle my childish, tyrannical, emotionally charged stance.
But it doesn't dismantle his stance. See, JP, listen. If you're going to use logic to dismantle somebody's stance, you have to use logic in a way that refutes their stance. Your Merry Christmas guy who's being totally normal about everything. Yeah. The logic he used actually dismantles his stance.
I suspected that would be true.
Why do you people find it even necessary to celebrate Christmas? Well,
which literally nobody has ever fucking said.
A lot of people find it beneficial to have a lord to worship and obey for their betterment.
Yeah, you can see it totally works for their betterment, which is why there is literally nobody has ever had a problem with white Christians. Like, white Christianity is just like a fucking capybara. It's just totally chill, never fucked with anybody. Like,
Lord that dedicated his life to saving them.
I have that.
You have Jesus?
Ew, gross. No. Fauci.
Ew, gross.
yeah, of course. Because, what?
My Lord is science. My Lord is divinity.
Like, I mean, this is just, I guess the P in JP Steers stands for projection, is what I'm getting here. It's just projection, because this is not, like, this is, like, the exact opposite of how any of this goes. Hello, Paul DeMelto. Yeah, it's not Xmas, it's Twittermas. In fact, that is how I'm going to. That would be the power move to really make these dickheads lose their shit, I think.
Now, look, though we have disagreements around what you call the holidays and what I call Christmas,
Well, no, it's literally not the same thing, because what he calls the holidays is multiple holidays. Hence the plural, actually. Because there's a bunch of stuff going on, actually, in this time of year. And Christmas is just one of them.
I bet we have some common ground somewhere.
Yeah, like the magic of the holiday season. How someone is always watching you, judging you, whether you're being naughty or nice, and then rewarding you or punishing you accordingly to help.
Yeah, I mean, because what? I mean, is I don't even know. I'm assuming there's a punchline coming here. I have no idea what. I mean, is the idea that the left is into Santa Claus? Hello, South of Sublime. What gets me is, like, this is, it literally is not. I mean, it's supposed to be a pastiche, but it manages not. It's like a pastiche, as imagined by ChatGPT or something. This is what you get if you ask ChatGPT to do a parody on the theme of the war against Christmas. And because nobody who actually knows anything about any of this, like, I can't imagine any, I mean, he says the left, he means libs. I can't imagine any lib looking at this and being like, oh wow, this is a really striking portrait of us that he's painted here. And I mean, I can't imagine a whole lot of right-wingers would actually look at this and be like, wow. I mean, he's got it dead on that to point out that Christianity was actually invented by people of color. Like, I mean, because I mean, when you turn on like Fox News, they're always talking about how Jesus wasn't a white dude.
Keep you in line.
Okay, yeah, I guess we can agree on Santa Claus.
Santa Claus? No. I'm talking about mass surveillance and a social credit score system.
Yeah.
What? What? Mass? Yeah. What? Yeah, I mean, what? I got nothing. I literally, where would you find these libs who would speak positively about the social credit score system, and also the right wing's against mass surveillance now? It's really strange because I haven't seen any evidence of the Republicans ever opposing it. Even if we're just taking the Republicans as the right wing, when really, if we're serious about the term, the entire political class is the right wing. Yeah. Like, this is wild. I have absolutely no idea where he even got the idea that this makes any fucking sense. Who, I can't imagine who watches this and spontaneously laughs. I have to say, I think we've broken a record here on the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel, actually. I don't think I've ever had 10 concurrent viewers this early on in the stream. It's only recently that I've even gotten into the double digits. So that's kind of neat. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And South of Sublime, I don't think I've seen you here before, and I'm glad to see you here today.
Yikes. Well, would you at least agree that this time of year is nice because it gives you a good reason to get together with your family?
What are you talking about? It's still not safe to gather indoors.
Well, the thing is, yeah, I mean, that's true, actually. It's a bad idea. Wait a second, but I'm curious. When was this? 2 days ago. Okay. Now, it's true, it actually is a bad idea to gather indoors with people you don't live with unless everybody's taking serious precautions, which nobody is. But you know who I don't hear acknowledging that at all? Libs. Like, I mean, there was a great podcast from the Death Panel podcast, which definitely worth checking out. It's available now for free, about how liberals killed masking. Because it's true, like, in about 2019, there was this sharp divide between, like, fash and everybody else on the subject of wearing masks, but Joe Biden killed that. Joe Biden and his merry band completely destroyed any adherence of liberals to any kind of fucking precautions in the midst of this public health disaster.
Are you trying to kill everyone? You still
Yes, probably. I mean,
think it's not safe to gather with people?
which, see, if I were going to be making that joke, one thing I would do, since we're obviously in the same room in this clip, is that you would have him wearing a fucking mask. If you're gonna make that joke work, because clearly, if he's saying it's not safe to gather with people, here he is gathering with, like, his fucking mirror image here.
I have a lot of faith in my Lord.
Hey,
A
Adria.
frightening amount.
Besides, if it was safe, even though we're far from that, I don't want to get together with my family.
Why not?
Because that might strengthen my family unit. I find it more beneficial.
Wait, okay, yes, because if there's one thing, the left doesn't want, it is to spend time with family members. Whatever the fuck the left even is to this dude.
To do my best to destroy my nuclear family.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me either. Hey. Oh, hello, Riveroon's mom. Welcome. You've picked an interesting one. I'd never done this guy before, and holy shit. Like, I mean, I thought that the one that Thought Slime looked at, that was supposedly about what if a liberal's kid came out as a Christian and everything and ended up just being this weird transphobic shit that didn't even make sense from, like, within the logic of transphobic shit. And instead, I mean, this is even more incoherent. I am at an absolute fucking loss here.
I think you're toxic. I want you to leave my house.
No, I'm not leaving. Get out. No!
Wait, I mean, so, what?
Merry Christmas. How dare you say that again? I'm out of here.
Bye-bye. Have a great Christmas.
Like, what the fuck was that?
I have an admission. I'm 42 years old.
Wow, I would have assumed he was at least 10 years older than that.
And I started to find I was having trouble starting my day. I'd wait.
Oh, that's right. This is when he flogs supplements. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's like he's never met any of these people. It's like he's never met any of them. Like the way he's portraying, because of course one of the standards of right wing comedy, there are not enough inverted commas in the world as need to go around the word comedy there, is that suppose that you present the right winger as being as reasonable as possible, but there's like this actually went even further. Like, I don't think I've ever heard right wing Christians in this country point out that actually Christianity wasn't invented by white folks. Like, that's something that they tend to actually get offended when you point out. They draw Jesus to look like. I mean, they draw like Aryan Jesus and shit. Okay, so I've got a few of these. What do you think? I want to get to Caleb Muppet and libertarians and continue that because that was bringing some special energy. But these are short, so I would be entirely content to do another one. What do you think, chat? Do we do another of these? I mean, this is how you destroy America. It's nice that he's giving us tips, and I mean, I don't know that I can even stomach what he thinks, what he's going to say. Israel versus Palestine, what they don't want you to know. Who the fuck is they? But like, if you want to, we can do another of these. I would totally be up for it, and they're short, and I think we can still get a whole bunch of Caleb Muppet and libertarian jabronis coming together. Yes, the tongue thing is weird as fuck. Yeah, I saw you apparently enjoyed the dentistry stream so much you watched it a second time with Sunjata. That was a wholesome scene. That was lovely. He said such very nice things. I really enjoyed watching that just because of that. Yeah, the sweater vest is really something. And where we left off, one of the fucking right libertarians who had absolutely no substantive points at all to make, just sort of clowning, um, actually took the piss out of him for tying a tie and then covering it up with a sweater vest. Hola, Phoenix, ¿cómo estás? Okay, so do we do another of these awaken with jabroni people and then do Caleb? Or do we go straight to Caleb? What do we think? I do want to continue that thing. People who victimize themselves all the time. That'll be cute. Yeah, I'm gonna do one more. Fuck it. We got time. These are short. And I just feel like it. I need. Oh yeah, the bizarre dentist people. I mean, Caleb Maupin is another excellent example of somebody who talks about people like he's never met one.
Damn, the grass sure is green.
Okay. It's not a conspiracy anymore, says his shirt. What isn't? Yeah, no, well, that's coming next. That's coming next. But I wanted to do one more of this, dickhead.
Green. Yeah, it's actually pretty interesting. All the carbon in the atmosphere is a really big factor that nourishes plant life. It's beautiful. And scientifically speaking, if we were to reduce carbon by much, all plant life like trees, grass, and flowers would die.
No. That's not how that works, actually. I mean, we're literally facing simultaneous crop failures in a number of regions because of the fact that our emissions actually have briefly had us over 2 degrees warming this year. But climate denialism is a very constant theme I'm finding with Jabroni Pony Sears.
Gotta get those carbon emissions down. So, I was wondering about something. That sounds like dangerous critical thinking, so for the record, I would just like to state that heretofore, I stand with the current thing, which...
What the hell is this? Is he... What? Okay, okay, I don't even understand this format. Is he talking to himself? Are they... He's probably on TikTok, it wouldn't surprise me. Are they supposed to be having a debate here? Is this an internal monologue? I mean, they're both wearing Awaken with Jabroni Pony shirts. I don't, none of this is making any sense to me so far.
Which is COVID, not current, BLM, nope.
COVID's current as fuck.
Ukraine?
I mean, it is still the number 3 cause of death in the US overall. I'd say that's pretty fucking current.
Not current enough.
Wait.
COVID? Not current. BLM? Nope. Ukraine? Not current enough. Israel versus Palestine? What are you standing with about it? Well, given the fact that I'm super underinformed on the vast geopolitical history of the conflict...
Okay. But wait a second. So the guy wearing the shirt that was supposed to be the reasonable... This is the outfit that he wore to be the reasonable right-winger in his like, weird-ass War on Christmas video that we just watched. But now he's wearing it and saying he's underinformed. I mean, like, I honestly do not understand what the hell we're talking about here.
I just want war. I stand with war. Ah, yes, that is the current thing. You've asserted that you're standing with the current thing and therefore being a witness to my critical thinking.
What critical thinking? There hasn't actually... What? Like... Does he read these scripts? Does a person read these scripts before he performs them? He must read these scripts because he's performing it right now. He had to read it at some point. This is totally incoherent. Like, chat. Okay, tell me it's not just me here. Yeah, CO2, it's what plants crave. Right.
You're absolved of all culpability. Great. It's always best to let the slowest people in society dictate the pace and direction that it moves. So what have you been wondering about? Victim mentality. There's seems to be a lot of people nowadays playing the role of the victim.
Well, yeah, it's like your entire target market is people playing the victim. I mean, that's why you've got a War on Christmas video. That's why you're selling War on Christmas merch. Because the people who love to pretend to be the victims love to spend, have money to burn, apparently, to buy
Sure.
shitty merch like this. He is allegedly a comedian.
And they seem to have no clue that they're doing it, even though they do it to an extent that destroys their lives and society around them. Yeah,
okay, like, this is like, it seems like almost it's like 1 degree away from insight, because his entire shtick is victim mentality.
they're like suicide bombers flying on a plane that just think they're a flight attendant. Yeah, it's
Maybe, what?
kind of weird. How do you think we've gotten to a point where people are competing to see who...
Like, okay, so what's the point of having 2 of you if you're not doing a counterpoint? Like, he has other cast members in these things from time to time. The first thing of his I saw, he had another cast member. Why, if this is not meant to be some sort of comedic counterpoint thing like he was doing in the last one, why not just deliver it as a fucking monologue? Because that's clearly what it is.
Who can be the biggest victim? Well, nobody really knows. if you had to take a guess? Well, you know the old saying about the historical pattern, strong people create easy times, then easy times create
Wow, okay, so we're getting some platitudes.
weak people, then weak people create hard times, then hard times create strong people again. I'm aware
Well, the idea here is that he is strong people? Because I'm not seeing it.
of such observable historical references. Well, our grandparents lived through hard times. They were born post-World War I, then went through the Great Depression.
Wait a second. He's 42. His grandparents were born post World War One. Well, okay, yeah, born post World War One. Yeah. Okay, yeah, no, I take that back. Mathematically, that actually does check out. I was thinking yeah. But
Then they lived and fought through World War II.
Yep.
Well, those hard times made our grandparents into very strong people.
well, it made a lot of them into very dead people too. Actually, I think you'll find. Like, so this is the idea is that all of human history is like a white dude character development arc, and he's the pinnacle of it. Apparently, this is peak white dude performance.
And born out of their strength was easy times that they built for the next generation, our parents and us. I'm not really understanding what you're saying. By parents, do you mean birthing person and non-birthing person?
That's not how that works.
That question brings me to my next point. Weak people.
So now all of a sudden it is a counterpoint or something. Like, what even is this?
Easy times that our strong grandparents built had our parents getting weaker, and that weakness has potentiated in us. And
Yeah, this is like... Yeah, it's hard to tell what any of this is even about. Oh, I'm glad to hear it, Phoenix. That is a relief. I imagine you must be feeling seriously relieved too.
we're currently in the process of creating very hard times for the next generation. And when you think about it,
I mean, this is actually why the whole generational discourse, if this could be the moment when the generational discourse kind of jumps the shark, I'd be cool with that. Because, like, who's we here? The idea is that all of us, everybody who was born between, 1969 and 1980, we're all, like, doing the exact same shit? Or is he saying we, as in right-wing grifters, in which case he's kind of got a point there? Although it's really the people who finance the right-wing grifters to make sure that we always never run out of them. You know, the capitalist class. But
there is nothing weaker than putting yourself in the position of a victim, and thus we have a lot of weak people doing just that.
I think it's empowering to be a victim.
Yeah, that's the trap. The point.
wait. Now he's saying, a minute ago, he was, black shirt him, was the one saying, isn't it weird how everybody wants to be a victim? Which is, again, I mean, we already went over why that's a little bit rich coming from Mr. War Against Christmas here. But, like, now he's doing the victim thing, and also, is it empowering? Like, does anyone actually sit here and think, I mean, other than, like, right-wing grifters who've convinced themselves, who love to pretend that they're, like, somehow oppressed, to the extent that they've decided to act as if anyone is stopping them saying Merry Christmas? But, yeah, like, what the fuck?
Poison is labeled as nutrition, which baits people into trying to empower themselves via a means that can only result in disempowerment. And along with that previously stated generational pattern, if you know anything about human psychology, which
you can be completely sure this guy, if anyone knows anything about the psychology of humans, clearly this guy has his finger on the pulse.
Don't, then you probably wouldn't understand that the more immature one's psychological development is, the more they crave attention as a way of validating their worth as a person.
Yeah, no, that's not how that works either.
Because they haven't figured out how to do that for themselves. I don't know how to do that, which is why you're an adult operating with the immature psychology of a child.
Yeah, except where, like, this, he does not think these things through. Does he just, like, smoke a spliff, sit down in the chair, wear two different shirts, and trust his luck? I refuse to believe that anyone wrote this, and then read it, and then said, hey, this makes sense, let's make a fucking video out of it.
Using being a victim as your method of attention-seeking behavior. In other words, being a victim is a magnet for attention.
Yeah, except that's not how that works either, because actually the people who are marginalized and victimized in society also kind of don't get a whole lot of attention. Like, I mean, yeah, maybe there will be it'll be noticed when they fucking die or something like that, but not in terms of anyone giving them a microphone to say, this is kind of what we need here.
The bigger the victim you are, the more attention you get.
You're right.
I thought shrooming involved some ego death, though. This guy's ego seems, I would have to say, very much alive. He clearly thinks he is the cleverest one in the room. He and Caleb Muppet should really, like, hook up. They could do a collab.
And then around 2010, it really started rearing its ugly, pathetic head in society, where people figured out they could pretend to be offended by literally anything, and they were rewarded with...
You just did a video about how you are offended by the fact that some people don't say Merry Christmas. Well, I mean, you're wearing the fucking outfit from that video.
With attention. By the way, your shirt really offends me. Yeah, it's supposed to, sport. And then from there, things progressed into people using gluten intolerance as a way to be a victim to the perpetrator of food.
What? I thought it was using celiac disease diagnosis as a way of knowing what food to stay away from so that they don't experience symptoms. But, I mean, this is just such a weird grab bag of, like, randomly jumbled talking points at this point. I don't even...
I like to think of myself as very intolerant. And the Harvey Weinstein thing happened, and non-victimized people figured out they could use that atrocity for their own gain.
Who the hell? What?
Positioning themselves to a victim of all men in general. I hate men.
Like, what the fuck is this? Yeah, like, none of this wouldn't... I'm not even getting into the political aspect of how bullshit this is. Because it is so incoherent, I don't even know what the point is supposed to be. Yeah, Paul, exactly. Because at the very beginning, it seemed like it was just him having a monologue.
Probably why you're not a real one, champ. Thank you. Then from there, the victim addicts realized they could label everyone around them as a racist, homophobe, transphobe, which...
Well, not everyone around them, but I mean, you're clearly all of those things from what we've seen.
Positions the offenders as the perpetrators, which then polarizes the victims.
Like, you literally just got done saying that you were wearing a Merry Christmas shirt in order to offend people.
Deeper into the position of being a victim. I hate white people. And then the whole...
Like, I mean, I will have to say, you would not, if your introduction to white people was this dude, you'd go off them pretty quickly. I mean, granted, it's like there's so many other introductions that will ultimately lead to going off them, but, like, if this guy would not, this guy does not exactly, if the idea is to make the argument that actually white people aren't that bad or something, he's not making that case.
Climate crisis narrative is very appealing to the victim addicts. They love to latch onto that because that lets them be a victim of the climate and a victim of the evil perpetrators causing carbon emissions through their audacity of being alive. Actually,
the audacity of being what? Like, the thing is that if you're trying to have a go at somebody's ideology, or something like that, And you want to actually make that land, you have to at least offer some recognizable pastiche of what they believe. I cannot believe that this guy has ever been around, like, humans. I believe he has just lived in, like, this green screen Truman Show of his entire life, and has been trained on dialogues written by ChatGPT. Yeah, well, I think we are all victims of this video.
Along with all cows, if we killed all living beings, it would be good for the climate because it would reduce carbon and therefore the earth would be a better place to live in.
I mean, again, if his point is to argue against that, if I were trying to make the case for why humanity should survive, I would be filing a motion in limine to make sure this video was excluded from consideration, because you can't look at this and say, wow, humanity's actually really kind of based, because humanity gave us this. Like, I wouldn't want to be making the case and having to explain this video. I'm glad I'm not having, I mean, but instead, you have to, like, I wonder how much fossil fuel money this motherfucker actually gets. But then, like,
for nothing that's left living. And then without even knowing it, some heroic freedom fighters have even polarized themselves into the role of a victim in relation to the corrupt tyrannical globalists. But the
oh, we got some anti-Semitism here. Positive anti-Semitism. Oh, that was not going to be... You can bet. I mean, he's very clearly also very pro-Israel, I'm guessing. Because actually hating Jews and loving Israel go together very nicely.
good news is the more they see themselves doing it as they're fighting the corruption, the more they can be the victors over the tyrants rather than the victims of the tyrants. So that
Who are the tyrants? Well, he said the globalists. Yeah, I mean, anti-Semitism, sorry.
That brings us to where we are today. A lot of people see themselves as victims as a way of getting their emotional needs for attention met in a
Now, explain how this fits into the war against Christmas.
very disempowering way, which they mistake as empowering while they're engineering.
Well, like, and what does "it's not a conspiracy anymore" mean? Like, A, what isn't? And B, what does that mean? It's, whatever's going on, the conspiring is no longer going on, as in they've stopped doing it? Or it's not a conspiracy because it's out in the open, which... on a certain level, a lot of shit has always been out in the open. I mean, capitalists ruling the world has kind of been pretty out in the open from the start, I would argue. Like, I mean, that shirt doesn't make any sense.
Very hard times for the next generation. I don't think that's it. I think there's so many victims in the world today simply because there's so much misogyny, lack of diversity, gender fluidity, denialism, privilege.
Wait. Lack of... He's saying that... lack of diversity and gender fluid... What the... Okay, or is his, because this is clearly supposed to be the woke dude, I guess? It's really confusing that he's playing himself. That he doesn't have a second, like, fucking actor in here, or, I mean, a first actor, I would argue, actually. So is he saying lack of gender fluidity? But that's not how he read the line. So is he have the woke dude saying gender fluidity is the problem? What the fuck?
Privilege, phobicness, and carbon emissions. I'm sure you're right. You can't be a victim and a victor at the same time, so...
Yeah, you fucking... What?
You get to choose which you are. This has been swept.
Maybe the problem is you don't actually... Most people... Yeah, you really can tell this is from the right-wing white dudosphere. Because they actually kind of give the game away when they say things like choosing to be a victim. Because that is very clearly, they think they can just sort of opt into it by making up wild bullshit like the war on Christmas or something like that. I don't think he knows what the words mean either.
Wow. But I've got to go. I've got an appointment to go be the victim of my circumstances. What are you up to? Yeah.
And what's with this fucking music either? And why? Since when do you need an appointment to be the victim of your? What the? Like, he's just using random buzzwords in like ways that don't even make grammatical sense. This is actually hurting my brain, and I'm not even talking about like the ideological stance. I'm talking about trying to parse the words that are coming out of his mouth.
Yeah, I'm gonna go change my circumstances. That's very privileged of you. And labeling you as such helps validate my unwillingness to change my circumstances, and thus...
Except that the people who, I mean, the whole reason that right-wingers don't like the people who they like to present as being victims or whatever, like, I mean, and it's already very telling the way right-wingers talk about victims as if that's a moral failing. Like, that's an insult, as opposed to it's just some shit happened to you. But the reason they don't like those people is because they keep trying to change their circumstances, and that makes things uncomfortable for dudes like him.
I will be staying a victim. Fantastic. Just let me know how that works out for you. You would like to know, wouldn't you? Not really. Well, it's probably not going to work out well, and I'll be telling you about it anyway because I'll be needing your attention. That's wonderful. Well, have a good day. It's probably actually going to be a bad day.
Yeah. What? And okay, is this a green screen? And for a guy who's a climate denialist, this is, wait a second, when was this made? This was recent because I didn't scroll down far. 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. We're talking, what, late November, early December. He's a climate denialist, and he's decided for this outdoor scene to sit around in shorts and short sleeves in late November, early December. As a climate denialist based in the Northern Hemisphere, where you should not be able to comfortably walk around in shorts and short sleeves outdoors in early December? Like, is that part of the bit, or did he just, since it was a green screen, he did not think to actually present the, dress for the weather that you would be having outdoors? Or should
Or
be
at least,
theoretically
I
if
hope
you
it is.
deny climate change.
Hey,
Yeah, optimizing digestion since 2004. Yeah, I mean, he looks like somebody who's taken something to ensure that lots of shit comes out of him. He certainly has no trouble getting shit to come out of him. Oh, but here, it is time. Yes, it is time to continue the discussions between some of the world's most unedifying personalities. The people who are only ever unintentionally funny and intentionally suck. Thank you again, Sanjata, for...
Right? And somehow...
Fucking hell, is he, like, behind a shower window? Oh, it's on 360p, no wonder. Here we go.
because there was some starvation in the process, that proved...
Okay, he's talking... I am so proud of that intro. That is some of my best 3D my best 3D animating. That is something I have not really mastered, but I'm quite proud of my efforts to date. That, see what I did there, I was going off. If you watch North Korean TV, which I occasionally do because I kind of like to just keep an eye on it, and it's interesting, it's like enough background noise for when I'm working and stuff. But whenever there's anything to do with a major meeting of the Workers' Party of Korea, they will have moving gold letters, shiny, moving, gold plated letters against a red flag waving background. And so I decided to see if I could approximate their animation, and I think I did a pretty good job of it.
I was supposed to come on and talk about what I think communism is.
Yeah, he doesn't know what communism is. That is something he has in common with the jabroni on the left.
Communism is a beautiful idea for people who have the ability to mute others and for some reason think it's a good idea to tie a tie and then put a cover over it. What the fuck is that?
Making childness.
I mean, he's not wrong there.
Insults now, so.
But I would not. You cannot blame anything about Caleb Maupin on communism, because Caleb Maupin does not know what communism is.
All right, next.
I mean, the last time we were watching this, last week, actually, the first of these right libertarians who showed up showed at least a better instinctive grasp of what communism is, and actually more than a little inclination to favorable inclination towards it, surprisingly, than Caleb Maupin does.
There you go. Yeah, he was losing the argument there. The communists cured starvation in China, right? And somehow, because there was some starvation in the process, that proves that communism has never worked anywhere, even though communism turned China into a superpower.
Like, I mean, that literally wasn't communism, because they haven't actually had communism yet. We haven't, other than small-scale examples that have been crushed from outside by the capitalist class, we actually have not had communism. And like China and the rest of these states don't even claim to be doing communism. They claim to be on the way there. That's the whole idea. They're supposedly the transitional phase. They always seem to be moving farther away from it rather than coming closer to it, which I would argue has to do with the fact that you can that by maintaining state power, you actually create the gravedigger of communism, because you create an entire segment of society that has a very direct and real interest in not transitioning to a stateless, classless, moneyless society. But what you cannot claim is that these governments actually claimed at the time that what they were doing was communism. They said that was they said, or they say, that that's what they were on their way to. In the case of North Korea, they had this weird 10 years long interlude where they actually basically excised the word communism from everything, even changed the lyrics of songs to omit references to communism being the objective and stuff like that. Yeah, his collar should be tucked in, and also he needs to pull that sweater vest down. It's like it's too small for him. Oh god, the space shuttle and MLK and Fred Hampton and Caleb. Yeah, I mean, just the fucking greats.
Etc. But anyway, Ryan, I can't bring you on because I can't see your face. So next I'm going to bring on David O'Gwyn. Welcome, David. How you doing?
Yeah, Mississippi Libertarian Party. This will be special. Nice bookshelves, I have to say. Really, I'm digging this study. I like those bookshelves.
I can't hear you, David. You're muted.
How's that? Is that better?
Good. Welcome. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
I'm good.
Well,
so,
good.
Do you want to introduce yourself or anything, or you just want to get down to business?
Well, I'm just a fella that's trying to get this thing to my mouse doesn't want to work. Here we go. There we
Now, let me just say, I'm sure he's about to say some fucked up shit. Because everybody, wow, 12, we got 12 concurrent viewers. This is it. We've broken a record today. Holy shit. This rocks. Very cool. Thanks to everyone who has been, like, coming here over and over again. But that's really cool. Yeah, I'm sure this David O'Gwyn dude is going to be saying some fucked up shit pretty soon, but I have to say, God, that voice? He should do, like, audiobooks. That is, like, there are, like, southern accents that I find painful to listen to. And then there is, like, he just has a very rich and easy to listen to voice. And I'm sure we're going to hear that rich and easy to listen to voice say some, like, hideous crap pretty soon. But it's still, like, you can't fault the voice itself.
Here we go. All right. Good times, man.
Sure.
So honestly, I'm here
He's like, he looks like Southern Bush.
to talk. I'm just here to, well, defend Joseph, to defend Josh, right?
Okay.
So you tell me how it is that you and Josh got.
Oh yeah, that's right. Josh called him the R slur. And then said something about, like, having children.
Tiff, and let's just have the conversation between the two of us. How about that?
I have no idea. I didn't even know who this Josh guy was until I looked. I assumed I've got a million libertarian accounts coming at me right now. Right?
Okay. What?
yeah. It's. I mean, and I will say thank you for taking the heat off the rest of us. I mean.
What's going on?
Because I argued with this Carolyn person, and she called me retarded, and so we got into it, and then a million accounts are coming at me. So I saw somebody attack me, and I didn't know who they were. But then I saw this guy's got.
No, that was somebody else. The helicopter thing was a few weeks ago. That was when he did that video where he said where he like decided to scold them and say, "Oh my God, I'm so shocked. It turns out that when you decide to throw in your lot with a bunch of neo-Nazis, they have fucked up ideas of what they want to do to even fake communists like Caleb." Wow, that's a hell of a freeze frame we got here. Yeah, I mean that's some major nasal energy he's given us.
26,000 followers on Twitter.
Sure.
He's a Libertarian Party candidate. So I thought, okay. And now he's claiming he knows more about communism than I do. So I
Which
wanted
is
to have
not hard. I mean, there's a dog upstairs. I'm pretty sure knows more about communism than Caleb does.
Conversation with him, and he's not here. And I'd prefer to have a debate with him, like directly face to face, rather than
that's fine.
So I mean, if you want to go over the
out.
thing about me not having children and him having children, I'd rather not get into that right now.
No, I don't want to do
if
that.
you want to talk about other things.
Well, I don't know whether you have kids or you don't have kids. You might have a bunch of kids. That's fine. So
He might not have a bunch of there's no limit to the number of kids he might not have.
was it Carrie Ann Harlos? Is that who it was?
Yeah,
I think so.
that
Yeah, I don't know my libertarians very well.
Well, Carrie
very clearly.
She's a radical libertarian. She's an anarchist, right?
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
anarchism
fucking isn't. Okay, let's just knock that one on the head. No, anarchists want nothing to do with these jabronis.
is a form of socialist ideology. So I don't think she's an anarchist.
know that. I don't.
Okay, that is honestly. Let me just say, better than I would have expected out of him. Way better than I would have expected out of him. I would have actually assumed that he would have been more than happy to tell his little cult of dickheads that anarchists really do like to hang with these dicks.
Well, I don't know that anarchists.
Look at all the famous anarchists in history. Emma Goldman was a socialist. Mikhail Bakunin was a socialist. It's this in the 70s. Milton Friedman's son.
In what?
Oh, like, okay, now this annoys me because he's actually getting this right.
Sense. That's
well,
my
and
question.
But this is the trouble when you have jabronis arguing. because it's like you have like the same magnetic force coming from both sides and they repel, and it creates weird equilibria. And the equilibrium here in this case means that you will occasionally have one dickhead who is totally whose ideas just suck still manage to have a better point than the other dickhead. And it's like electoral politics, actually. Yeah. I mean, I would say a lot of, I mean, I'm an anarcho-communist, for example, so I guess you could say that that is a subset of socialism. I wouldn't be offended if somebody were to do that, but yeah. I mean, if you want to talk about anarchism, you're talking about, a system that is opposed, an ideology that is opposed to hierarchy. And capitalism doesn't really fit in well with that. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that is that is his brand. He will say some reasonable, fairly standard, like leftist talking points, and then he will add some fucked up shit at the end. Although, him saying something reasonably accurate and not like offensive about a clearly rival sect. Oh, that's a Proudhon quote. Proudhon. Proudhon, it was a TV chef.
It's a school of socialist thought, right? Among socialists, you generally have social democracy.
You're giving me a tautology. It's socialism because of socialism. What does that mean?
Well, there are.
Wait, okay, we're gonna have Caleb Maupin explain anarchism. This is a weird configuration we have just entered, and I don't know what the fuck's about to happen here. And I'm just realizing that Caleb Maupin is JP Sears with a different haircut.
Are different brands of Marxist and socialist thought. Okay. One of them is a belief that socialism cannot be created through coercion, right? That the state cannot be used to create socialism.
Yeah, well, okay, those are two kind of separate things. He treats those as synonyms, but I need to push back against that because it's because there's a lot of misunderstandings around this, particularly amongst like actual real Marxists, not fake Marxists like Caleb. Because on the one hand, yes, definitely you could say one thing that anarchists tend to agree on is that the state will not be the way of actually creating socialism. But coercion it depends on what we're talking about. Because obviously, lots of tactics that anarchists have historically used are actually quite coercive, like general strikes and things like that. You are very much doing a non-negotiable thing and taking back your power, so that you can see that, you can, by withholding your labor or various other things, and that can certainly be presented on a certain level as coercive. At least within the context of the social hierarchy that exists. But, I mean...
rejects all state activity. And that is the socialism that Emma Goldman advocated, Bakunin advocated, Proudhon advocated, etc. That's one brand of socialist thought, and the great anarchists throughout history are adherents of that teaching. It wasn't until Milton Friedman's son started calling himself an anarchist.
It wasn't really Milton Friedman's son. Actually, the first person was Murray Rothbard, and he bragged about taking the word libertarian, which up until that point had been a term that anarchists use, and turning it into something that these real estate lobby types like him used.
Anarcho-capitalist, that we started having that. Free market thought and anarchism they were never associated with each other. But we're arguing semantics here. This isn't important.
No, that's fine. But the semantics are important, and that's fine. You mentioned that you said that anarchism is a brand of socialist thought, and then you told me that all of the people that believed in that the people like Emma Goldman and others were anarchists in the sense that they believed that socialism could be brought about only in the absence of state coercions.
Yeah, no, I mean, not a terrible summary. Where's he going?
Right.
That still does not define what socialism is. Could you help me out there?
Okay.
What is it? What
Yeah, and this is where we're going to run. Okay, is he? This would be really interesting because what he's done, what this has actually put him in the position of doing, is something that I have never seen him manage, which is to accurately represent what somebody he doesn't like thinks. Although, actually, I have to say, he did a surprisingly good job so far with, like, not. I mean, I would have expected him to, say, like, he likes to say, like, shit like anarchities and then claim we're all CIA and a bunch of bullshit like that. So that is what's weird, because that is what's weird about this sort of a configuration that we're dealing with here.
what does it mean to be socialist?
Well, I'm going to put a quote on the screen from the Communist Manifesto.
Great.
So we'll just go from there. All right. Let me just pull up the quote. All right.
This is section 2 of the manifesto that Marx and Engels didn't stand by because they saw it put into practice in the Paris Commune, and it didn't work there because the Paris Commune got wrecked. But it is one of the 2 paragraphs of Marx that Caleb Maupin has read. And I would argue that you wouldn't find a whole lot of anarchists, which is who we're talking about, who would agree with this exactly being what they mean by socialism.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. He can't paraphrase it because he doesn't understand it. I mean, he clearly does not understand it well enough to be able to actually just paraphrase it.
That's not
Here
a
we
quote.
go.
Okay. All right. Help me out here.
The proletariat will use its political supremacy to wrest by degrees.
I would love to know if this guy even knows what proletariat means.
All capital from the bourgeoisie, and to centralize all instruments of production into the hands of the state.
Yeah, this is not a definition of socialism that's going to work for anarchists. Well, I mean, of the proletariat organized as the ruling class, which is, of course, the bit he always kind of glosses over. I mean, depending on what you mean. Okay.
I.e., the proletariat organized as the ruling
Yeah, and zero
class,
comprehension.
and to increase the total productive forces as rapidly as possible. That's the idea. The centralization of the means of production.
Yeah, I mean, because if there's one thing that specifically, like, libertarian socialists, anarchists, have always been big on, it's, like, massively increasing production regardless of what the current level of production is. I mean, yeah, you can look at Kropotkin, who pushed back against the sort of the notion of describing it as overproduction when actually the issue isn't so much that there's too much stuff, but that most people who need it can't afford it or whatever. I mean, he was certainly arguing for more production, but I mean, he was arguing for that in the late 19th century when we definitely were not producing at anything resembling the rate that we do now.
In the hands of a revolutionary working class government.
Okay.
Yeah. It's the idea is the broad masses of people, we win the battle for democracy, we seize control of the means.
I mean, here, listen to him. He's still just parroting quotes. Win the battle for democracy is a line from this. Yeah. I mean, he cannot. I mean, he has quoted this, and I've seen him do it without looking. I'm pretty sure he wasn't looking. At least I couldn't see a piece of paper that he would have been looking at. But he clearly, for all the times he's said this, there is no sign that he comprehends any of it.
Production, and we organize them centrally in order to raise productive forces in society. That's the idea.
Okay,
do you want me to keep that on the screen, or do you want me to take
no?
it
That's fine. You're helping out a lot. All right. How are they going to know how to run any of that?
Well, I mean, obviously they're literally already running all that shit. It's just that they're running it for the benefit of bosses. Like, that's who runs stuff. But, which is going to be interesting because Caleb also, this is one of the areas where he always kind of skips over because he does not like to talk about what Marx had to say about the capitalist workplace. Because he kind of wants to keep the capitalist workplace. Because he thinks, I mean, the thing about Caleb Maupin is that he thinks fascism is communism.
What do you mean?
Well, we got the means of production. I assume we're talking about capital accumulation in the form of machinery and of systems and of all the things that end up giving us the things that we need to be able to survive.
Well, yeah, they're literally already running this stuff. I mean, they're the only people, like the proletariat, the only people who know how to operate any of it. I mean, I'd love to see Jeff Bezos try to actually work in a fucking Amazon warehouse. He'd probably manage to get himself killed.
How is the proletariat going to know how to build, maintain, and
he has no idea what the working class is.
All of that capital accumulation.
I think that there will be technicians and specialists who.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. Because Caleb does not actually comprehend this point either. Because the actual answer to this is that the working class obviously knows how this shit works. Because it's the working class that's making it work right now. Like, literally, if something's getting done, it's because the working class is doing it.
Handle these things. And I think that there will be, obviously, individuals, just like there are in socialist societies around the world, who have the task of engaging in central planning, just like at major corporations under capitalism right now. Walmart has people whose job it is to figure out how many products go to what store and where these things are assigned.
Yeah, he has absolutely no comprehension of the working class. I mean, I'm selling him short here. He worked at a sandwich shop for 6 months when he was at Baldwin Wallace College in Northern Ohio. He worked at an unnamed sandwich shop. Gus Hall? Okay, I feel like I ought to know that name. I feel like that is a familiar name, Paul, but could you remind me? It's not coming to mind, but I feel like it's a name I ought to be familiar with. But I mean, he does, like, the fact that it doesn't occur to him to say, yeah, government of action. God. That, I mean, what the hell is that? A government that does stuff. Like, that is the most uninspiring slogan ever. But, like, who does he think is making the stuff work now?
Kinds of central planning in which there are individuals who are tasked with central planning and carrying these things out.
But why would there have to be individuals? Why couldn't you have, like, the working class, or, you know, organized as the ruling class or whatever, say, you know, use all this amazing fucking technology we have for coordinating stuff and coordinate the stuff in real time? Why do we need individuals doing it?
I don't know how to repair my computer, but if my computer breaks, I'll take it to a computer repair shop and there'll be somebody who does know how to do it.
Yes, a worker, actually, a proletarian.
Idea that every person is going to know every machine or every task, that's ridiculous, right? You know?
Oh, Gus Hall, that's why I know that. Right. I remember now, that there was, what was it, the Anti-Monopoly Coalition. That's Gus Hall. Because I remember looking that phrase up. Because it seemed like something that there's basically no phrase of his that he hasn't taken from somebody else. Because he does not synthesize anything. He just sort of quotes. And yeah, that's right. And I read an article that was on Marxist.org from like the 1970s explaining why the anti-monopoly coalition made absolutely no sense and was doomed to fail, as indeed it did. Don't bring up dentistry. It makes Caleb hot.
And you know, I mean, maybe you've heard some of this workplace democracy stuff that's floating around.
Some of this workplace democracy stuff. Yeah, true communist right here. Yeah, true communist.
You know, maybe that's where you're getting this impression from. You know, I'm not against the idea of a worker cooperative, but that's not the essence of socialism. So
yeah, but that's not. I mean, a worker cooperative is just one form. And a worker cooperative within capitalism is still capitalist production. It's just the workers are exploiting themselves in order to make that work. But I mean, it's interesting. I mean, it's extremely telling. Let me put it that way. How completely he glosses over any attempt to change the nature of labor within of capitalist labor relations. He clearly does not want to do that, even though, like, Marx in particular, and quite a few people following in his footsteps, spent rather a large amount of ink talking about why the workplace in capitalism sucks, actually, and we should do better.
socialism is about abolishing the anarchy of production and ensuring that economic growth can continue without, you know, the problems inherent in the market.
Like, no, economic growth is... He doesn't know what growth... I have to keep reminding myself. He has demonstrated time and time again, he doesn't actually know what economic growth is. It's just that LaRouche and capitalists generally say it's good, and therefore it must be good.
That's
Gotcha.
how I see it.
Okay, so
It's store-bought toothbrushes.
so when we get rid of the market, we will be able to have a set of people who know enough to be able to make everything that the market makes. Is that
The market doesn't make shit, though. It's just workers all the way down. I mean, we have the set of people who know enough to make the shit. If we didn't have a set of people who knew enough to make the shit wouldn't be getting made now.
Well,
that
here's
right?
the thing. I am at the point where I think that if you look at the successful socialist societies of today, like Vietnam, like China, like Nicaragua, that they use the market, but they use it for consumer goods, right? I don't think the government should be making children's toys. That would be ridiculous, right? We're going to have some government bureaucrat decide. No, people.
A bureaucrat. A government bureaucrat. That's, they don't actually look at the paperwork. They just sort of sit on it so you can't look at it. Yes, I mean, I don't know if you were there for it, Paul, but at one point recently, the Muppet actually claimed the Nazis did degrowth.
People can vote with their dollars, right? You know, I don't think the government should run hotels and restaurants, but
like... But why? Okay, but yeah, I'm not actually in favor of the state running anything. I'm in favor of the working class running those things. But the thing is that you can't actually say that a state-run hotel or restaurant doesn't work. We've actually seen examples of it working pretty well. I mean, I'm against the state because I think that it's fundamentally it preserves capitalist relations no matter what flag you put on it. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't occasionally manage to make shit work. Like, I mean, the Ongyuan in North Korea, for example, is a state-run restaurant, like the premier restaurant of the entire northern state. And by all accounts, the standard of the food is utterly fucking out of this world. Like, I mean, lots of people, not people who are like DPRK fans or something like that, just people who visited and know a thing or two about like Korean food done properly, and they all speak very highly of the standard of the food. I mean, So I don't think fundamentally that, like, that's just ownership. In the end, whether you have, whether you have private capital running it or the state running it, that is not actually a fundamental difference. That's because the state actually just comes in as the capitalist, and fundamentally, whoever you've got like as the owner, you've got people working in the thing, and assuming they are allowed to do what they do well, and they actually know how to do it well, then it will potentially come out well. Now that doesn't actually affect. There's this whole separate question about how production is organized, but I mean, I don't think you can actually. It seems just really odd to be making the argument that for state capitalism that he makes, specifically for sort of a fashy version of state capitalism, and not accept that the state can run these things as well as private capital can.
The power plants, the big steel mills, the assigning of credit and banking. There needs to be
exactly. I mean, workers workers were running the hotels and restaurants and everything in revolutionary Catalonia, and by all accounts they did a great job of it. Yeah, I mean, the market, when most of the time when you hear these references to hello genetically Hegelian. Yeah, I love that name. Thank you. Have a good night, Paul. Most of the time when you hear references to the market doing this or the market doing that, I mean, it's just basically they're talking about the ruling class. Oh, well, have a good drive.
Central planning, but within a centrally planned economy, I think the market does have a very good role, and that things that make life good, right? Things that make life enjoyable, entertainment, these kind of things. Yeah, people can vote with their dollars for that.
Well, actually, I mean, like, when you look at private, this is actually, it's interesting that the specific examples he's coming up with are examples where actually the private sector has not generally done it very well. Like, if you look, the reason you get actually a much better quality of TV drama in places like Britain, in places like Western Europe, or even Canada than you do in the U.S. is actually when you have these like state funded TV stations that actually that are well funded and give enough editorial and creative independence. You actually have a lot more creative leeway to work with than you do when you're like completely beholden to advertisers. So I mean, if we're accepting this paradigm, if we're accepting the way he poses the dilemma, which is a false dilemma, I really do not see how you could actually come to this conclusion unless you just wanted to give capitalists something.
I think that there's a role for that, and that yes, if you have a bureaucrat sitting there and deciding what clothes get manufactured
20 years past
and things
bedtime,
like that, you're gonna have a problem. And I think that that's one thing we learned from the fall of the Soviet Union. That Stalin model of doing things was very effective at industrializing the Soviet Union. Wiping out illiteracy, raising that country up, inventing space travel, electrifying the whole place, taking people from living in rural huts and putting them in modern housing units. I mean, they turned a whole society from being a backward agrarian country to being an industrial country. But when it came to things like, clothing, shoes, consumer goods, soda, they were lacking. And
soda? Well, I mean, God, you obviously we need private capitalists in order to have soda, apparently. Like, what the fuck is this? And actually, I mean, I have to say, this just also, it's funny because for the most part, he's a Nazbol and he's a big Soviet stan and shit. But what he somehow manages to miss is that there are actually all sorts of, I know in Germany, for example, in East Germany, there are all sorts of East German brands, of food products and snack foods and shit that people like even today. That comparing it now that they can compare it with the West German version of the thing, The people still like the East German one, and they still will buy it, in the original formula. So, I mean, this is just such a weird argument. I mean, this is just actually very much sort of like some bullshit, like some John Stossel bullshit, which fits, because I've always thought that Caleb Maupin was John Stossel's fursona. But I notice it is almost 1 in the morning, so it is time to cut this short. I will be, got a bit short at Pizza Hut. Like, yeah, a shitty general secretary having shitty pizza. It is time for me to turn back into a seagull, but I will be back tomorrow at 11:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. Let me just drop you the Discord link where we can keep in touch in between. Invite people. And let me just say, if you enjoy the stream, I always appreciate support at my Patreon or using the tip command. I know it is everybody is like under massive economic pressure at the moment. Well, except for about like 0.1% of the world's population. Oh, thank you, genetically Hegelian. Well, this stream is coming back. Tomorrow night, same time. I do hope you join us. And with that, I will be going. Have a good night.